Hey y'all, welcome back to Twin Oaks Family Farm in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. It's Melissa here and it is July 23rd, 2024. We are in the meat bird production barn. Gonna give you a short look-see around it here just momentarily in a few minutes. But it's kind of a ghost town right now. So this video is just kind of a storytelling, shout outs and status update. Kind of just let you know what's going on here. And we're all just kind of like breathing big sighs of relief because we got through the flock of 400 plus. So a lot of times, you know, we will try to do some video when we're loading birds up on the day that they get loaded and transported and taken to the processor. We didn't do that with this flock. We just finished a flock. If you've been following us, you know this. If you haven't been following us, we'll kind of catch you up. So we raised Cornish cross meat chickens here, and small, independent, family-run poultry farm operation, raising the meat chickens and some egg chickens. Not a whole lot of them, maybe about 60 in production for eggs at any given time. So we just finished on July 22nd, 2024. We just finished the biggest flock of Cornish cross meat chickens that we've ever raised. So a little bit of story time right here. So imagine a building built specifically for raising meat chickens. Imagine the building being sized to hold approximately 450 Cornish cross meat chickens about 5 or 6 weeks old. Imagine filling it up with these little baby chickies that are just the size of a chicken egg. Some flocks 100, some flocks 200, some flocks 300, but then one day filling it with a flock of 434 Cornish cross meat chicks. The building was sized for 450 birds at 5 or 6 weeks old. So when we filled it with an order of 425 Cornish cross meat chickens, that was our biggest flock yet, and that was really close to the number of chickens that the building was sized for. So it was a real test to see if our planning for the building on size and stocking density of birds to space and functionality of the door system for airflow and ventilation and air exchange, and functionality of the lighting management with artificial indoor light, plus being able to manage sunlight coming in through the doorways. It was a test to really see if this building worked the way that we believed it was going to work, and if it worked for the number of birds we believed it was going to work for. So we moved that flock of 434 birds in on their hatch day, which had been June 12th, 2024, and raised them in there for 41 days. Processing day was on day 41, July 22nd, 2024, and it was time to put the birds into crates and load them on a truck and haul them to the processor. And so in this story, I'm happy to say that we had great success with that flock. So the stocking density to space ended up being excellent. The barn itself is 30 foot by 30 foot floor space inside there for the meat chickens. And we do have this breezeway coming through here on the north end of it. And that breezeway is positioned between two sheds that are perfect for storage and for office space. So we got a real time, real life experiment in how well the space worked for about 450 birds. Like I said, we had 434. So ended up with 419 of those birds making it from the beginning of production on June 12th to the end of production on July 22nd when they were 41 days old. So when we moved those birds in here, we started 434 of them just in this, basically in this space right here, right in front of you, which amounts to about 10 foot across by 20 foot east to west. And we had the heat lamps there because we had cool enough temperatures that we needed to target warmth on them. So as the birds grew, we actually were able to just let them naturally expand into more and more space in this building because we had the floor space for it. So by the time we were at the end of production, they had 30 foot north to south, and they had about 25 foot east to west. And it was perfect. It was perfect. So that was 409, ended up, we counted 419 birds at finish. We kept thinking we had 420, but we counted 419 when we loaded them into crates. So the space ended up really just about perfect for them. So 30 foot by about 25 foot was great for just over 400 birds. So that might, that might be a reference point. If you're raising like 100 birds, I think you could take that amount of space and kind of divide it in fours, and you could kind of figure out like stocking density to space, what would work for you raising Cornish rock cross meat chickens also. But anyway, so it worked out great. So now we've got the birds at the processor from the biggest flock we've done here. They would have butchered them, and they're cutting them into our custom order and get them frozen, and then we pick up the poultry. And so they'll let us know when that's all ready. But we would have liked to have done some recording when we were loading them. Maybe we will next time, but I'll tell you what, even with 5 of us in our household, all hands involved in this small farm operation, and even with the experience we've had raising flocks of chickens, raising the flock of 400 plus was really management intensive, pretty labor intensive. So it was a lot of work, and at the end, I mean, it pretty much wore us out. We weren't like round the clock in the barn, but we were a lot of hours of the day, very frequently checking on the birds, working in the barn, doing management things such as checking that fans were working, checking how fans were positioned, checking how the birds were interacting with the airflow from the fans. We were constantly cleaning water trays, filling waters up. The flock drank a lot of water, which is excellent. That's what you want your birds doing. You can still see some of the risers where we have like feeders headset. You're all the time, adjusting the height of those if possible to get it high enough that the birds stand up when they're eating and drinking. You might also sometimes have to actually move those risers over. You can see how the bedding builds up so that it's flush with the top of the risers. So those would have, like those sitting there, they would have stuck up above the bedding when we set them there. But as we added bedding in, the bedding level would have come up to where the risers are. You see that happen there, to some of those. So there's always constantly those adjustments. We'd have been checking bedding and conditioning bedding, which means that we would have taken a pitchfork and turned all this bedding over. So now this bedding is all packed down. We've got flocks that will come in behind him and finish the summer with. So we're not going to dig up this bedding. We're just going to use deep litter method. We'll take up all the wood pieces and we'll just put fresh bedding on top of it. Okay, so those kinds of things, that's what we'd have been doing those 41 days, checking on these birds. And as we got close to the end, it got like more intense, because then you have birds that are finished that want a temperature of about 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're having temperatures of like 94, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and we got to keep those birds cool. I'll tell you a true story, and then we're going to kind of move on to a different train of thought. So like, you've got a waterer here, okay? So day 40 with that set of birds, I had a waterer here. I think we had a waterer here as well. We had the fan, the purple fan running there closer, like, no, that is where it sat, and we had that corner kind of blocked off. And then we had a fan sitting about middle of that doorway there. And I had a bird like right about here, okay, standing, say right about here. And I'm going to show you how close we are to that set of risers right there where there was a waterer sitting. This bird was standing right here, just panting, hot as can be. So we're going to take steps over here. We're literally like 1, 2, 3, 4, literally 4 of my footfalls from where this bird was standing to where there's water. And this finished meat chicken was standing here just panting, obviously distressed, obviously uncomfortable, obviously needed water. The water was that close, and it wouldn't walk over there. So I came over. This was on day 40, so day before we're taking them to the processor. We're checking birds, we're looking at individuals, we're looking for anything where a bird needs intervention, needs some help. So we see this bird. All the other birds are sitting down, relatively comfortable. This one is standing here panting. I pick it up, take it over to the water, dunk its head into the water once, let it drink, dunk it again, let it drink, dunk its beak in a third time, let it drink, and I think had to dunk its beak in one more time, let it drink, and waited. And all at once that bird's wings relaxed, it stopped panting, and you could tell it just looked more comfortable. It literally needed a drink of water. Then it got some water, more water on its own. But it was literally 4 steps from the water and wouldn't just go get it. And that's what you get into with meat birds on the finished end especially. They need to stay at the comfortable temperature. They need to stay hydrated, and they have a heavy appetite. But they also get to a point in production, especially when they're finished, when they're at the finished stage, they get to a point in production where they aren't motivated to move around as much. So they will literally like need water, but be 3 or 4 feet away from it and not go get it, and could actually dehydrate and end up passing away, because they won't just, as an individual, go get the water they need or whatever, even though we have provided it. So that's for us where, like, working with these birds is just, it's not rocket science, but it requires a little babysitting. It requires a little bit of respect for the nature of the animal, and just accepting that sometimes you're going to have to go out and actually lead the chicken to the water and make it drink. And that may be whatever the case is. But it also means you got to check for temperature. You got to make sure, the lighting is encouraging and supporting their eating habits. You got to make sure the bedding is absorbent, is dry, and try to keep it a little bit fluffy so that it's a place for them to lay down. Clean bedding helps make clean birds too. So you know, the cleaner we can keep our bedding, the better off the birds are going to be in the long run. So there's a lot of details that go into raising Cornish rock cross meat chickens. And for us, with this flock of 400 plus, the biggest flock we've raised, it was just a lot of mental work to think through all those things, and a lot of physical work to actually provide the resources and make sure the birds had them. And when it came day to crate them and haul them and get them to the processor, we had everything we could manage to focus on to just get the job done, and didn't get to share it with y'all on video. But if you can imagine, we ended up with, we had all these birds, you know, throughout this pen. We came out here to load them up. I've got one crate up here on the wall I can show you. So we had 21 of those filled with 8 birds each, and we had 25 of another style of crate filled with 10 birds each, and we had those on the floor here. And then you can actually see the little black trailer there, little flatbed trailer, utility trailer. We had all those crates, 21 of those, 25 of the others, so 46 crates of 419 birds loaded on that little trailer. But it was all sitting in here as we got it all loaded up and ready to go. So you know, it was interesting. And so all these feeders here had been inside this pen for those chickens, and we took those away on day 40 because you need to do feed withdrawal and take the feed all the way from the birds 12 to 18 hours before they go to the processor. So some of the things going on right now is that we've got a bunch of, we're just going to step out here a moment, we've got a bunch of baby bird feeder trays, and we've got a bunch of baby bird waters. We're going to get these cleaned up. Here's the rest of the reservoirs. We're going to get those all cleaned up because we need to be using them again. We've got some bedding on hand, might have to get some more. So we're going to be getting an area ready here for another flock of 400. We ordered 425 Cornish rock cross meat chickens to start another big flock. And so they'll actually be raised for exactly 5 weeks. So we'll have a really great comparison of having like a 6-week production schedule compared to a 5-week production schedule, because we're going to have a 6-week flock that we just finished, and then back to back with a 5-week flock that we're going to be starting. But we actually had those birds. I wanted to tell y'all, the 419 birds, we figured it out. We got to handle those birds one bird at a time, gently but firmly, individually, picking them up off the floor, putting them into a crate. And of course, there's 4 or 5 of us working on it. One of us has to be counting them as they're into the crates and opening and closing the crates. So a lot of little tasks have to coordinate to get that job done. But we did some math and figured out we were loading a bird every 7 seconds into a crate. We had approximately every 7 seconds. We had those 419 birds loaded in an hour, about an hour. So that was amazing. And then it took maybe like an hour, up to an hour and a half, for the guys to load the crates onto the trailer, strap them onto the trailer securely, and be ready to go. And we were hauling them way early hours of the morning, so no sun beating on them, no high temperatures, and we were really fortunate we didn't have any rain or anything to worry about. So next time we crate and load onto the trailer and get ready for transport, we will try to record some. But we had everything we could handle with just doing it, that first opportunity to have a flock that size. So we had to get through it, and we're happy to have the opportunity to tell you about it here. But it was pretty amazing how well it went, and we were really pleased with how the flock turned out. To even end up with 419 out of 434 birds made us really, really happy with the Cornish rock cross meat chickens in that flock. So with that said, before we finish up, a couple of shout outs to our newest Twin Oaks Farm Poultry channel members, and we'll do a shout out again later this week for them. But Chim's Chicken Coop in Germany and Fidel S. And I know Fidel's in the United States of America. They are our newest Twin Oaks Farm Poultry channel memberships. Our channel, Twin Oaks Farm Poultry, is part of the YouTube partner program. We're able to offer channel memberships and do some members only video content to have available for y'all. So please consider a membership at our channel. We hope that you'll consider it. It supports our projects here on our small farm, supports our projects with video content, and we hope that you'll consider a membership. You can click the join button that's under the video. We'll also put a link in the comments, and you just click on that, and when you click on the join button or that link, it takes you to another page. It tells you about our memberships, and you want to kind of scroll through it to see the different options. There's a few options there, so just consider it. But thanks for supporting our channel with your time and effort watching. Give the video a thumbs up, put something in the comments, and we love your feedback. If you have experience with the things that, like the Cornish rock cross meat chickens or any kind of chickens, and we love your suggestions for video content or your questions about why we do different things that we do here. So that's what we said. So we said some storytelling, some shout outs, and some status updates. So I think we basically covered it all. But you know, we were really wore out after last week with keeping that finished flock really thriving for that time from their day 35 to day 41. It was just constantly keeping water clean, keeping water filled, keeping temperature as favorable as we could for them, and keeping the bedding as clean and healthy as we could for them. And it wore us out. And the weekend was tough, keeping a steady eye on them and then getting them to the processor. And like I said to start with, it's just kind of a big sigh of relief from our family. We're kind of catching our breath and like feeling hopeful again. But we were really feeling like, man, we're just surviving from one task to the next. So it's nice to feel that weight lifted. I know, like we're just like jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire because we're starting a flock the same size. But you know, we feel a little hopeful now because that's a mountain we've conquered, and like we know we can do it, and we feel like there's things that we probably can even improve. So we're excited to bring you along on our second flock that size, and hopefully we'll even have a smoother journey this time with those chickens. But that was, you know, something we wanted to share, that this building that we set up really intentionally for floor space for 450 birds, it worked. So we built a 30 by 30 foot building with the intention of being able to raise up to 450 Cornish rock cross meat chickens in here from start to finish. And for this last flock we did, and the next two we're gonna do, we cut off just like the front 5 foot of the building with a short wall for our storage area and work area, because we have our water spigot there and we had a pallet of feed here. And so we're going to be bringing feed in. We'll be bringing in 2 skids of feed, so 80 bags of feed we'll be bringing in for this flock that's moving in. So for this, you know, this flock, they had the 30 foot running north-south and the 25 foot running east-west. And it was adequate, more than adequate floor space for raising that approximately 425 Cornish rock cross meat chickens. So overall, one of the great things for us as a small poultry farm about this last flock that we just finished was that it gave us the opportunity to see that the plan we had made with this building absolutely worked, and it was enough space for the amount of birds we intended to put in it. So that was really cool. But that's the status update. We have another group of probably 425 plus a little more moving in here on Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. We want to be able to get some footage and show y'all the chicks when they move in and the floor space we set up for them. So we will do our best to do whatever time allows to include you in the process and in the journey. And we're going to have those chicks starting probably in 24 hours or less in here. So, you know, they've been incubating for like 20 days. They're ready, you know, they're ready to hatch. So they'll be hatching. Their hatch date is tomorrow, July 24th, 2024. So we're excited. So that's the status update, fixing to start more chicks. That's why we're washing those small feeders and waters. And then after that is done and they're settled in, we'll also be washing the big feeders and waters to get them ready, because within probably about 10 to 14 days for this new flock, we'll be swapping out the baby supplies for the big bird supplies. So it's pretty cool that way. It's a really predictable process, actually. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us. As I requested before, please do consider a membership to our channel. We're finally bouncing back from chicken mafia fatigue. I don't know what to call it, meat bird fatigue, whatever. But there is a real, if you want to take that away from this, if you're still with me, there is a real human side to that for farmers in general. And it's one of the reasons that we are constantly encouraging people, please heart local ag wherever local is for you. In other words, source as much food from local producers in your area where you live as you possibly can, and support local agriculture where you live, because there really is a real thing that is farmer fatigue. And it's a combination of the physical work and the worry over the uncontrollables like the weather and the temperature and the rain or lack of, and the stress of the livestock or the crops, and the sweat equity of doing everything you can to help that crop or that flock or group of animals be successful, and the fact that so many things in the process are out of your control, but you do what you can. And then there's also the financial and investment part of it, that in many cases, whether it's livestock or crops, in many cases farmers will get a return on a finished product, but on the front end, a lot of times that's having to be paid for, out of pocket or out of the farm's savings or whatever the financial setup arrangement is. But the fact is, we're not getting the money ahead of time for the product we're producing. And it's just like any other business. It's a product or a service that takes time to produce, requires financial input, and then we're not getting a return on it till later. So for farmers, that farmer fatigue is when you take all of that put together, it creates a huge amount of stress that can cause a farmer either emotional worry, or could cause them, to be physically wore down or physically sick. And I remember some FFA students several years ago one time telling me that I'm going to go research this, but one of the leading causes of death among farmers is suicide, from just that expression of that stress buildup. And I don't want to see that happen to any farmer. None of us do, but that's why we say, it really is a real thing, farmer fatigue. And the more that the public has an awareness of what farmers are producing and how the intentionality of using our dollar locally and sourcing from farmers can really make a difference in the farmer's bottom line on their operation, and then that can translate to really making a difference in the farmer being able to continue to produce. So please support local agriculture wherever local is for you. God bless y'all. Thanks so much.